All right. So now that we've seen a bunch of these teams and players agreeing to terms, I figured today would be a good day to give out grades for some of the free agent signings and also predict which free agent signings will have the most impact in next season. So with that said, let's get started with the first one. Now, I briefly touched on this free agent signing on Monday, and we're going back to the biggest payday of the free agent period, and that was with Kirk Cousins. So I would give this signing a B to a B plus, and to me, this signing really just gives the Falcons more answers than questions, and that's a big reason why I give it a B to B plus. And I'll say this again, but this time I want to go into more detail. I really think this is like getting another Matt Ryan. I mean, when you think about it, you've got two quarterbacks that are known for making good decisions, getting their work done from the pocket, which is sustainable in the NFL, and ultimately accurately distributing the ball to playmakers. So that can do you a lot of good in the NFL. And let's face it, although Matt Ryan and the Falcons didn't ultimately win a Super Bowl, I would still contend that tenure in Atlanta was very successful. They were pretty much viable all of Matt Ryan's career. So again, I think there are more answers than questions with signing Kirk Cousins. It was a big payday, but I think it's worth it. And the Falcons have been a bit of a mess the past couple of years, so I think they just want to be viable and relevant again. So even though it's a lot of money, I'm still going to give this a B to B plus because ultimately I do think you can win a Super Bowl with a quarterback caliber talent of a Kirk Cousins. We saw it with Matt Ryan. He got very close. Obviously, we know what happened in that Super Bowl, but if things line up and things go right, I can see that happening. So the other one I want to go to is the Raiders signing defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. This was probably my favorite signing of the free agency period, to be honest with you. I mean, the Raiders just doubling down on the defensive front for Antonio Pierce, their new coach. That's a great starting point for any defense when you think about it. And not only are Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby great players, I really think they have the right attitude and mindset on the field. They're going to be good culture builders for the Raiders. This is a bit of a tricky one because the Raiders as well have been a bit of a mess lately. We haven't seen any postseason success from them in recent history. But again, I think this is a good starting point for them. And then the last free agent signing I'll hit on before I get to the second segment of my episode will be Danielle Hunter to the Texans. Again, we're seeing a team doubling down on the defensive front as they just drafted Will Anderson in last year's draft. So you've got two bookend edge rushers that are going to give you a lot of productivity. Danielle Hunter was extremely productive last year for the Vikings, and the Texans lost Jonathan Grenard too. You're also seeing the Texans being ultra aggressive while they have CJ Stroud on that rookie deal. So they can spend money, be aggressive in free agency. So this brings me to my one position in particular that was active, particularly active the first day of free agency, and that was the running back position. Now, I'm just going to ask the question, what's happening with the running back position right now in the NFL? Because I'm somewhat sure, but not 100% sure. On Monday, the first day teams and players started agreeing to terms, we saw about 7 to 8 running backs agree to terms. And by the way, some of these teams that are giving out deals to running backs, they're well-known, historically relevant franchises. Typically well-run franchises. You're talking about the Packers signing Josh Jacobs, the Ravens, who have been perennial contenders for a while now, getting Derrick Henry, another Alabama running back. And then also the Eagles getting Saquon Barkley. So, these are top flight franchises over the past 10 to 15 years, say, and they're willing to spend some money on running backs. Now, I have a couple of theories as to why this may be happening. With the salary cap increase, are teams just more willing to spend on that position, with $30 million extra room in cap space? Or are GMs basically figuring that they can get players that are the best at their position for a reasonable price? Because when you think about it, The highest paid running back for this year was Josh Jacobs, and he's averaging about $12 million a year. You know, you have receivers and other positions, even some offensive linemen, some guards getting much more money. So I think it's a combination of the two. And I think it's also situational. I mean, if you think about it with the Eagles and the Ravens, you've got two extremely mobile quarterbacks. So there's a lot to like in terms of the option game. You know, when Jalen Hurts can keep the ball or hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley, that puts a lot of stress on the defense, particularly in the red zone. Same with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. So these are pretty significant signings. I got to give it to these running backs that are getting paid. I do land somewhere in the middle, and I'll say that it's not the most valuable position out there, but it's still valuable. And there's a reason that first day of free agency, 7 to 8 players at that position got a nice payday. And then also situationally, you know, you think about DeAndre Swift with the Bears and even Austin Eckler for the Commanders. Those are the teams that are drafting at the top. And the thing I really like from a running back is the ability to affect the defense on third down, particularly. We saw that with Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers this past year. I think that's a huge part of the position nowadays, catching the ball out of the backfield or lined up at a receiver spot and really affecting the defense that way. I think both of those guys can do that and help the young quarterback that's coming in for the Bears and the Commanders. So that's kind of my theories on what's happening with the running back position right now. And I didn't have all of my best stuff today. I won't lie to you. I'm still saving that. I know I've teased to you guys that I want to start talking about the draft a little bit more. And tomorrow, I'm saving it for tomorrow because I want to have my own a singular live episode just dedicated to one of the contexts for my quarterback draft class, which would be drafting the quarterback strictly based on high-end potential. So that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. So look out for that tomorrow. And yeah, thank you guys for joining me. It was a short one today, but I just wanted to keep things moving and look forward to tomorrow. So the draft is April 25th in Detroit. So we're getting closer. We're inching closer, about 6 weeks away. I figured this week's a little more dedicated to free agency, especially since we're in that period now. And then starting tomorrow, I'm really going to dive into it. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I know it was a short one, but look out for that episode tomorrow. I can't wait for it. It's going to be fun. All right. Thank you and stay tuned.